Hello, welcome to another episode of Strictly Healthy. I'm so pleased that you can join us. We haven't done these little episodes for a while because I've been away on holiday in Portugal, had a fantastic time, and that's a lovely way to de-stress. If you can get away, then I would certainly recommend it, and definitely Portugal is the place. Today that's what we're talking about. We're talking about stress management, how to de-stress and get rid of our stress. And we have an expert speaker with us today. Her name is Dr. Rebecca Williams. And hi, Rebecca. How are you today?
Hi, Linda. I'm very well, thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So you are or were a GP. You're still a GP, aren't you?
Yes, I've been a GP for over 20 years and I'm doing a little bit, but I'm kind of easing out of it.
Okay, right. So that's essentially what we want to talk about today. Just first of all, tell us a bit about your life as a GP. Why you got into being a GP, and then why have you made the transition into what you're doing now?
Well, I've always loved working with people. So when I started to do medicine, obviously as a medical student, you experience many aspects of medicine. And for a long time, it felt that general practice was what I wanted to do. I wanted to live in the community and work with people in the community. And I really loved being a GP. I've loved getting to know my patients and helping them with various problems. But things have really changed over the years in the NHS. There's been greater pressures. I won't go into detail of all the things that have changed, but I just found myself feeling that I wasn't really loving my work in the way that I used to. I still loved working with people, and I particularly loved working with patients struggling with stress. People come to see me as a GP with a whole variety of symptoms, whether it's physical symptoms or symptoms affecting their mental health or their emotions and how they live their lives. So I just began to think, well, this is an area I'd love to spend more time in. And that's basically how I made the decision ultimately to set up my business and specialize in stress management.
Right. So how long actually have you been specializing or dealing with stress management?
As in with my business as opposed to as a GP?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I set up my business in 2018, but I had no corporate experience, so it was a steep learning curve, and I was just kind of getting off the ground, and then COVID hit, and then things changed. I went online, and it's actually been really good for my business in the sense that I'm able to network with people all over the country. I'm able to have clients all over the country. I even have one in France at the moment. So it's opened a whole new world really for stress. And obviously people are also more aware of stress. They're talking about it more willing to admit they're struggling with it. And also people are far more used to the online world. So whereas in the past people would want face-to-face, now they're more willing to engage with you in an online environment.
Yes, very true about, seems like many people are picking up business through the online world, etc. And thanks to the whole pandemic situation, that has really helped to facilitate that and drive a lot of us online, because many of us wouldn't show our face before this, would we?
Absolutely.
To go online.
Yeah, so, no, I think life has been transformed very rapidly by COVID in that respect.
Yes, and it has been a steep learning curve for a lot of us, I think, to learn the whole technology behind it and learn exactly how it works. So just going back a bit, how do you find your clientele, and what type of clientele sort of works for you?
I suppose obviously stress can affect everybody. I think that's the point. People often talk about stress as if it's a one size fits all, and it just isn't. It's very individual depending on your personality, your circumstances, your support networks, your financial situation. I mean, there's so many factors that contribute to whether someone's feeling stressed. So I see myself as being available to anybody. But in particular, I have a webinar that I think is a very useful way for employers to educate their staff on stress. There's a lot of talk about well-being in the workplace and pressure on employers to put things in place that support staff in the workplace. But we have to remember that many staff are bringing their own stresses from their home lives, and I think needs to have some responsibility in looking after themselves. So my webinar is a good way to educate staff on how they can look after themselves. Also, my one-to-one sessions just provide people with more focused support.
Mm-hmm. And when do you run your webinars?
I basically do them for a business. So a business would get in touch with
Oh,
me
I
and
see.
say, we'd like to have your webinar, and then I would arrange that with them.
Oh, I see. So it's a tailor-made sort of thing.
Yes. It's a fairly standard webinar, but it's designed to be quite a personal experience for those who are attending it. So I speak as I am with you now, but I ask people to have pen and paper. I ask them to reflect on certain things. So it's about encouraging individuals to understand themselves better and giving them tips in self-care as well.
Okay, so well, we'll go into that a little bit more at a later point, just to find out more about what what tips that you offer to help deal with stress. But I'm just curious, do you find that it's mostly women or men that have stressful situations? Where do you find the balance is leaning towards?
Interestingly, I'd say it's pretty equal, actually. And I would say in general practice, I've had more men admitting to struggling. And in my business, where I've done the webinar, I've had a few employers then saying, we've got members of staff who are struggling, and quite a few occasions those have been men. And they've asked me to give them some sessions. I would say individuals coming to see me directly, more often female.
Yes, yeah, women tend to be self-driven more so, and well, I may be generalizing, but sometimes a lot of times men might wait till it's the last minute, and they're really ready to sort of, keel over type of thing, and then they think, oh, I better seek some help.
Yes,
but
I think you're right.
So, just going back a bit, what are some of the questions that you get asked in terms of, or what do you sort of, are you able to, obviously you're not going to talk about anybody in particular, but what are the types of things that you have to deal with?
I suppose the thing is, yes, people don't ask specific questions, but in terms of the kind of issues they've come with, a lot of them are around relationships, whether it's relationships with children, with partners, with the workplace, a lot of that. And for many, it's just a collection of stressors. Stressors are the things that make us feel stressed. They do it by generally making us feel anxious or worried or under too much pressure or both. And they are cumulative. So the more stressors you have, the more likely you are to be struggling with stress. So often it's a sense of overwhelm. People have many different things going on, and they just kind of a rabbit stuck in the headlights. They just don't know what to do, and are needing help with that.
Yes, yeah. And I imagine that with the economy the way it's going at the moment as well, and the world scene, if you like.
Absolutely.
Those are biggies, aren't they?
It's pretty mind-blowing.
I couldn't watch the TV at the beginning of the war with Ukraine. I couldn't for days and weeks.
I think you're right. Absolutely.
A lot of people were stressed by that.
Yeah, and I think that feeling of helplessness, the feeling of complete disbelief, the feeling of injustice, and so yes, in fact, I wrote a post on that on using one of the tips I'm going to give later to try and help deal with that kind of thing. But obviously we've had that, also the cost of living, so a lot of very practical stresses that people are facing at the moment, and the pressure that then puts on them and their relationships, which then adds to the cooking pot of stressors. And then obviously we've had COVID, and many people are struggling with the after effects of that, whether it's their own health, the health of a loved one, a bereavement, or the impact on their mental health from all the lockdowns. So massive numbers of stressors over and above the normal ones people are dealing with.
Yes, yeah. People have really, we've really had a bashing, haven't we, of the last 2 or 3 years, haven't we, with one thing and another, and it seems almost relentless. It just kind of keeps piling on. So now that we sort of talked about the bad news, so to speak, let's see if we have some good news in terms of what can we do about it. What
yes,
sort of,
I mean, obviously there's loads of different tips. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, sure, carry on.
What can we do? Well, there's loads of different tips, but I'm just going to focus on a few which I think are helpful and which clients have reported they found them very helpful. So the first one is the serenity prayer, which goes like this: grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. A corporate way of talking about it is your circle of influence, your circle of control. So often when we're stressed, like you talked about, Ukraine, cost of living, lots of things that are beyond our scope to make a difference, to change. So what we have to do is try and identify those things we are in a position to make a change and to go about doing that. So I always say to people, write down your stressors, write down all the things that are making you feel stressed. And then look at your list and think, right, which of these am I in a position to do something about? So you might say Ukraine and think, well, can I do anything here? Or maybe you can make a donation. Maybe you can have a refugee family to stay with you. Maybe you can pray for them. Who knows? But again, just think, is there anything I can do on a practical level? And then regarding the things you're not in a position to change, then that is about looking after yourself and nurturing your mental, physical, and emotional health so that you're more resilient and better able to deal with those things. So that's a really important tip, I think, that people have said they've found very helpful. And certainly with clients and patients I've worked with, it's taken them from a place of overwhelm to one of feeling a little bit more like they have a plan and something that they can do, which always makes us feel better when we can do something. The other thing I think...
Sorry.
No, carry on.
Well, I was just thinking that's a really good tip you gave about Ukraine, because a lot of us, that's what we felt. We felt that overwhelm, that we couldn't do anything about it. But I think that's great, because we feel better if we can donate. We feel better if we can maybe open up our homes and take some people in. We feel better if we can just even like write to somebody that we know over there. I mean, some people have been there. They packed up their vans and gone over there with donations and tried to personally help. So that at least alleviates our mind, doesn't it?
Absolutely, I think it does help. And even on other stressors that you might be facing, it may be that things aren't great with your partner or your spouse, and it may be that you need to invest a bit more time, quality time with them to actually kind of reconnect. Or maybe someone's being bullied and you maybe need to talk to somebody about it. Or there's often things, if we stop to think about it, there's often things we can do. But that's the point, we need to actually stop and be objective about it, and the Serenity Prayer kind of helps you to do that, I think.
Okay, so that's one thing, dealing with the things that we can actually change. What's another tip that we can share?
I think the other thing, another thing I think that's important is acknowledging our unhealthy stress relievers or unhealthy coping behaviors. So they're the things that we do to make us feel better. They're very quick fix, but actually long term they can cause us harm. So these would include things like drinking lots of coffee, drinking alcohol, snacking on sugary and fatty foods. Also things like spending money, which can make people feel better, time on social media. So my motto regarding those things is, let your unhealthy coping behaviors or stress relievers be a treat, not a treatment for underlying issues that need attention. So, if you find that you're not sleeping well and you're drinking loads of caffeine or Red Bull to try and stay awake, then actually step back and think, right, why am I not sleeping well? And try and take on some advice on how you might sleep better. So again, it's just not giving in to those behaviors, because they then lead to problems. And again, I see lots of problems in the GP surgery relating to unhealthy coping behaviors, whether it's palpitations from too much coffee, or a condition that can affect the liver, actually, where you get fat deposited in the liver caused by having too much weight, diabetes, joint problems. So that's important too.
Because people can make things worse for themselves by, I don't know, just trying, like you say, trying to alleviate the situation. But I really like that motto. So, let it be a treat and not a treatment. I think that's an excellent tip. Very good. Because all too often people might turn to alcohol and then they end up making things a lot worse for themselves.
They do. You're right. And in fact, I have come across patients where alcohol started off as a way of calming nerves and ended up destroying their lives, ending because of the addiction, ending marriages, jobs, and ultimately their own health and their life. So yes, I'm very aware of the impact that unhealthy coping behaviors can have. And another thing I think to think about is protecting our minds. It's very, like you were saying, you stop watching the news. It's very easy to spend a lot of time watching the news because it's there all the time, or looking at social media and not actually thinking about what we're watching or reading or even talking about with our friends. And it can become very negative and can make us feel very anxious. So
Yes.
think about what you're reading and try and balance it with things that make you feel better, good news
Mm,
stories. And if you're talking to friends and family, try and have some positive things to talk about. Don't make it all about moaning.
yes, indeed. And like you say, positive things definitely changes your own mindset, because
Mm,
if we're focusing on negative all the time, it's not going to help us, is it?
no,
Not going to,
absolutely.
definitely not. Okay, so those are really good tips. I'm really liking what you're saying so far. Really helpful. So, what else would you share with us then in terms of how can we help ourselves to do a bit better stress wise?
Yeah, well, along similar lines to what I was talking about before, trying to protect your mind is the gratitude journal, which again is having a notebook and every day trying to write down 3 things you're grateful for or 3 things that have gone well. So again, it's training you to focus on the positives and not dwell on the negatives. Um,
Hmm.
that can be very helpful as well for people.
Hmm.
Um, sleep with sorry.
Oh yes, yes. Sleep's a good one, I find. Yeah, because you got to sort of wash your brain, and that's what sleep does, doesn't it?
Sleep's
So
very important, yeah, for restoring your sort of mental health to some extent, but is often a problem when people are stressed. So um, again, I could go on quite a long time talking about sleep, but a few important factors with sleep. One is to live your day well. So try and get physical exercise. Try and get daylight on your skin and your eyes because that helps set your body clock. And make sure you have a downtime before you go to bed and keep all tech out of your bedroom. Um,
yes.
Think about earplugs, nightshades, or eye shades if you're sensitive to the sound and light.
Mm,
Also, have pen and paper by your bed. So if you have a bright idea just as you're dropping off to sleep, you can write it down and not have to think about it um, till the morning, and that will help you rest your mind. Also, breathing exercises to help you relax your body.
mhm.
Diaphragmatic breathing is particularly good at reducing your blood pressure and your heart rate. And then once your body's relaxed, then you can engage in a sleep exercise to try and
Mm,
relax your mind.
yes, I think that's a really good tip about, yes, we do want to get good sleep at night, etc. But for me, yeah, that eludes me sometimes because I'll wake up during the middle of the night and then all kinds of negativity starts to come into play and my brain starts working out lots of things I need
Yeah.
to do. I mean, how can we deal with when we wake up during the night then? Is there
Okay.
any tips in
Yeah.
that regard?
Well, the first thing is to make sure you're not drinking caffeine after 6 o'clock or even 4 o'clock, because that increases your
Yeah.
likelihood of waking up to go for a wee.
Mm,
If you have woken up, if you need a wee, go and do it. Come back, get into bed, and reset yourself. So again, do your breathing exercise to relax your body and slow your heart rate, reduce your blood pressure, and then do your sleep exercise. I can briefly run through a good sleep exercise,
yes,
which
please
involves,
do.
so you
Yeah,
close
why
your
don't we?
eyes.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Yeah, let's delve into that a little bit. That would be
Okay.
great.
So this is one I find works quite well because it's asking 2 things of your brain. One is to speak to yourself in your head, and the other is to visualize. So you close your eyes and you say to yourself in your head, "I'm imagining the space between my eyes." And as you say it, you picture your face and the space between your eyes, or you picture looking out and the space between your eyes 3 times. Then you say, "I'm imagining the space between my ears." Likewise, you picture the space in the middle of your head between your ears. So you're saying and picturing. And then you just work down your body symmetrically. Shoulders times 3, elbows, hands, hips, knees, feet. And the
Mm,
whole point is you're saying it in your head and you're visualizing it. And if you get to the feet, you come back to the eyes again, or if you get distracted, you start again at the eyes. And as someone who has a very busy mind at night, I have found this works for me.
yeah. So you get a busy mind yourself then
Yeah,
at night.
very.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I always thought, and other practitioners have told me, just count to, I don't know, 10, or say, count to 10, or count, relax out and sleep out. So I'll count RELAX, then SLEEP. But I don't know. I find that makes me think too much.
Yeah. And also, again, you're just having to do one thing. unless you're picturing the letters as you do it, I find the other part of my brain just heads off and does its own thing, even though one's counting very, very.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So it's an interesting thing. Maybe we'll have to have you back to talk about sleep in particular, because that seems to be such a struggle for people, just to get adequate sleep. And sleep affects a lot of our health, doesn't it?
It does. And I think the other thing is,
sleep.
yeah. And I think the current advice is to try and get between 7 and 9 hours of sleep. I think they say that the 10 o'clock's the hours before midnight are somehow more important than after, but I'm not entirely sure about the evidence on that. But I think there is an element of truth in it. But I think the other thing is not to go to bed stressing that you're not going to sleep. Tell yourself, it doesn't matter if I don't sleep tonight. At least I'm resting. I will cope tomorrow. So again, if you start stressing, oh my goodness, what's the point of going to bed? I'm never going to sleep. I'm never going to cope tomorrow. That just makes you less likely to sleep. So talk calmly to yourself and tell yourself it doesn't matter. You will cope, and that will help you.
In other words, don't put the pressure on yourself. I guess take as much as possible. Take that pressure off.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
Excellent. What other tips would you like to share with us?
Another one I think is really important is nature. Nature is out there, it's free, it goes about its things throughout the seasons, throughout the years. And evidence shows that people who incorporate nature into their day do improve their happiness scores. So and so you're getting fresh air, you're looking, you're enjoying, sometimes you're mixing with connecting with people while you're engaging in nature. There's loads of different ways to do it. And evidence also shows that even immersing yourself in Planet 2 or one of these wonderful nature programs that we have in this country can also improve your well-being. So that's something else to try and prioritize in your day if you can.
Yes, that's a really good idea. I find, and that's part of exercise as well, because especially if you go out and walk, I find that really helps me, because sometimes you're stuck at your desk the whole time, and you're not getting any sun, you're not, and you're not sitting properly and all the rest of it. But just to get out, maybe drive to a little park or walk around your neighborhood or anything like that.
Yeah. And I think the thing is to work out what you can do. Because as you say, some people maybe live in the middle of a city and nowhere near anything green. Well, could you have a bird feeder on your windowsill? Could you have some little plant pots in a window box? Can you look at the sky, look at the birds? Or maybe you can walk to a park or look at the trees, or have a few pots on your terrace or something. So you're just having the joy that comes with it, especially at this time of year. It's so beautiful, in everything in its full kind of early summer glory. The birds singing away. There's a lot there to enjoy if you actually take the time out. And it's amazing when you're immersed in nature. It's amazing how it puts your worries into context, and suddenly you find yourself thinking about other things. And give space for your thoughts to come to the surface. So it helps in many ways.
And you mentioned about, watching birds and that sort of thing. Many people have suggested it about animals, having pets and so on. What do you have to say about that?
Yes, I absolutely agree. And I think connecting with a living thing, it can be very therapeutic. I mean, I know there's a lot of, often people take in dogs, don't they, to hospitals or care homes and things. And cats, just the feeling of something soft. I know of people who get a lot of relief just from having a cuddle with a cat or a dog, or talking to them or stroking them. Absolutely, they are a great source of stress relief. They maybe can be stressful at times as well, but
well, it's funny that you mentioned about that. Even the robotic ones, like the robotic cats and dogs and so on, seem to be really helpful to people in care homes and dementia homes and that sort of thing.
Very interesting.
People seem to be, benefiting and coming alive when they have even something like that. So there's a lot of help and therapy in that regard, I would think.
Yeah, and we have to remember our brain is programmed in such a way that when we do something we enjoy, it triggers the release of certain transmitters, our happy hormones, and so yeah, that's absolutely to be encouraged. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So any more tips you want to share with us then on how we can help ourselves become stress-free or manage our stress?
I think The way I talk about it is you need to look after your mental health, your thinking patterns. You need to look after your body, your physical health, and then your emotions. And I think it's important also to do things that you enjoy, because the enjoyment itself, as I said, releases hormones in your brain that can help override some of the negativity. So that's an individual thing. And likewise, exercise, I always encourage, it's an individual thing. Find something that works for you. Don't feel you have to go to the gym. If it's just a walk, that's lovely. Actually, in lockdown, there was a great WhatsApp meme that went round of a guy in his flat in Spain. He had tiled floors and he'd put cooking oil, vegetable oil all over his floor. He was holding onto the counter and then just moving his legs like he was on an exercise, on a walking machine, like a treadmill.
Yeah,
And then
I've seen that.
yeah. And I thought, how resourceful is that?
How ingenious. Yeah. I don't know how helpful that was. He probably fell a few times. I would have thought.
Yeah.
But indeed, very, very helpful. Yeah. So
Whatever
I'm
works
just,
for you.
yeah, sure. I'm just checking to see if anyone's had any questions. I'm not seeing any in the chat, but I know we've had a few people join, watching as joining us live, I should say.
Yeah.
So that's great. Many people tend to watch on replay as well, because they can watch it in their own time. 4 o'clock can be a difficult time, in the days for people to make a comment and so on. But I appreciate your time that you spent with us today. Maybe we could just recap some of those tips as well. Now, let's see, you mentioned about your serenity prayer. In other words, doing what you can actually change. Yeah. Doing things that you can actually change and deal with. You talked about don't use stress relievers so people are using things like coffee and alcohol and snacking and so on as a stress reliever, but you said they should be a treat as opposed to being a treatment. Protecting your mind. So I don't being more balanced with it, more positive. Have I got that right?
Yeah, it's just being aware of what you're reading, especially and how much time you're spending on screens, taking in information that might just be affecting how you feel about yourself and about your life, and how and anxiety and mood.
And I like this one too about gratitude journal. Putting down 3 or 5 or whatever things that have improved or made you feel good that day. I think that's a really good one, especially at night. I think doing that at night helps. And the one I find really helpful is getting up early in the morning, getting some sunshine on your eyelids and your body. It resets your
your body clock, circadian rhythm. Yes,
circadian. Yeah, I was trying to remember how to say that. It's a difficult one, but it resets your body clock, doesn't it?
Yes.
So that's a really good tip that I've learned. So those are excellent. Very, very good. So where do you see your business going from here in terms of what would you like to see your business doing in, say, 5 years?
I'd just like to be extending my reach, I suppose, to helping people with stress, and just I suppose I'm trying to do my bit for the NHS by helping people manage their lives in such a way that they reduce the harm caused by stress, so they don't end up going to the GP with problems caused by stress. Through individuals, businesses, organizations, anywhere I can be of use, I think.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, so thank you so much. That time's gone really fast, but I really appreciate your time in sharing those tips with us today. And just hang on and we'll just get there. But thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
You're more than welcome, Rebecca. So that was Rebecca Williams. She's a GP and she has now started her own business dealing with stress management. So hope you can join us same time, same space next time, usually on a Thursday, not every Thursday, but we aim to bring you topics that will help you with your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. So hopefully you can join us next time. Thanks again.